She gave birth to him. She's his mother. I turned my confused mind away from him. He was not important. He might have been correct in his statements, but they were unnecessary and uncaring, for I too was grieving in my own way, and he just brushed that aside. That same evening, another older Togolese man came to talk to me. I do not think he knew my mother. I think he was just a friend of the family. Don't forget your language, he said to me in a calm and caring voice. I studied the expression on his face and did not say anything. Nevertheless, I would always remember his words, for they displayed a kindness that went beyond words. There were not many Ewe people in America with whom I would practice my native language. As a result, he must have figured that I would forget if I did not make an effort. From time to time, when English would begin to dominate my mind, I compelled myself to think in Ewe in my head. There were times when I did it daily. At other times, I did it weekly. That was a trick for remembering my native language. I do not recall where we went that evening, but soon after I found myself in my mother's so-called best friend's house. The man she was married to was an interesting West African fellow. He was extremely reticent and hardly showed much emotion. He was in the kitchen now, reading the newspaper, silent, hardly moving a muscle. He and I hardly exchanged more than a few words. I do not know why this particular image would remain with me, but try as I might, I cannot rid myself of the image of his back turned to me as he sat in the kitchen. He was almost immobile. I watched him out of the corner of my eye. I observed him as I myself was suffering inside. I was not comfortable within my skin. There was a sadness about this Ewe man that was reaching me across the room. I was extremely depressed and did not need his sadness as well. I tried to think about something else. I could not. I could not control my inexplicable suffering. I was not comfortable within my skin. Suddenly, I had it. I would focus on my immediate environment. The living room was rather small, but clean. I sat on a couch where I would sleep that night. I closed my eyes. My skin and soul tormented me. I was oppressed, agitated, uncomfortable, and perhaps most importantly, was confused. Every so often images of my dead brother appeared before my mind's eye. My heart and chest area cringed in turmoil. All attempts to relieve the pain were only slightly successful. I woke up the next morning in my shirt and underwear. Catherine, his wife, had already left. I did not know where my mother was, but what I did recall was that Catherine was not happy with her husband. He did not seem to be physically abusive. I felt the only thing he was guilty of was his inability to show his emotions. He seemed like someone who had been suffering inside for a long time. Not long after his death, we went to see his body. It was just us, his family. I was sitting to the right of my mother, who was repeating more or less the same thing she had said the night Esevi was murdered. I turned to my brother's face. His features seemed lifelike, but yet he produced no words. The agency had done a good job embalming him. He looked clean. The wound was not showing. However, his facial expression was the same as that Sunday night. The more I gazed at his face, the sadder it became. I should not have been there longer than a minute or two. He was gone, and I was going through the ritual of creating negative energy. 2 weeks later, we moved to an apartment very close to school. My mother brought a lot of furniture from the house. As soon as one entered the apartment, to the left was the kitchen. The kitchen was nice, especially the silver color faucet. It would be in front of the faucet where my mother and I would have a verbal argument, where she would repeatedly stick her index finger to my nose and I shoving it off my face, nearly biting it. The kitchen floor had tiles. Directly in front of it was the living room. There weren't any doors between the kitchen and the living room. On the left side of the living room was a chimney, which always seemed to be full of wood and debris. It would be nice now to have a chimney in my New York apartment. The couch was set near the front closet to the kitchen, thus the television was directly in front of the couch. It was directly across the bathroom. In the bathroom, there was a big white bathtub to the left, but the bathroom itself was narrow and tight. Unfortunately, there was only one toilet in the house. As a result, we were always fighting over it. To the left of the bathroom was my mother's bedroom. In the middle of the room, Next to the wall in the back were a big nightstand and a tall mirror. The nightstand had makeup material, hairbrushes, 2 hand mirrors, and several pictures of SCV. By this time, my mother had made a shirt with his picture and the words, "A child killer should not live." This t-shirt was in the room. Another curious thing was the naked light bulb in the middle of the ceiling. It shone too brightly. Next to the left of the bathroom was our bedroom. Mesat slept on the left side, while I slept on a right closet to the door. The window was on my side of the room. Next to this window was a dresser. This dresser was very significant, for I often drew and wrote on it. Over time, I drew a very odd and ugly-looking man. He had short hair and had an abominable look upon his face. If one were to ask me today to describe or say whom I had drawn, I would not have a good answer. It was a mixture of emotions. The surface of Mesat's dresser, on the other hand, was bare. About a month and a half later, I was in my room staring at the drawing on my dresser when the phone rang. I was watching cartoons, the Tom and Jerry show. I got up to answer the phone. I picked it off the ringer and headed toward my room. "Hello, who is it?" "It's Avon's sister. I don't think we've ever had the chance to speak." "Yeah, sounds about right, more or less. So how may I help you?" "Can I talk to Avon?" What a question she just posed. That meant that he did not tell her. This was most interesting. I thought he was close to her. Perhaps he was ashamed of what he did. "You want to talk to Avon? So you are not aware of what he did?" "Aware of what?" The words exited my mouth painstakingly. "Of the killing. He killed my brother." I paused, thinking about the possible reason why he did not tell his sister about what he did. After all, she was the only person whom he called. She was his only confidant, his only real family. Despite all this, she never came by the house. "No, I didn't know," she answered. "Is there something else I can do for you?" "Where is he?" "In prison." "Yes, but where?" "Listen, I just told you that your brother committed an atrocity, and you're so calm. It would seem that you don't care." "Things happen in life," she said. What did she just say? My ears must have been deceiving me. I could not believe it. I was stunned, stupefied. She didn't have a heart. Maybe it ran in the family. "What did you just say?" "Tell me where I can find him." "What?" I said, and hung up the phone. Not a single "I'm sorry for you." I felt like ripping out her tongue so that she would never say such mean and apathetic things again. Her voice was so calm, as if things like that happened in her household every day. What an idiot. I was angry. My heart was bruised again. I was sad and angry at the same time, as if blood had rushed to my head. I grinned my teeth and launched to the air, speaking aloud, "Bitch, bitch, bitch. May she and her brother go to hell, the two of them." Oh, how I would have loved to seize her in a choking position, to wring and shake her neck, to slap her with pleasure, to slap her endlessly. I walked to the family room and turned on the television. I was still talking to myself inside my head when I heard the key turn inside the knob. "What are you doing there?" my mother asked. "Nothing." I turned off the television and headed toward my room. My mother turned it back on. "I'm going to do my homework," I told her. I still could not stop thinking about Avon's sister. How did she get our phone number? We just moved into the apartment not too long ago. Our phone number was unlisted. I lied in my bed, looking up at the white ceiling. You know, if you stare at the ceiling long enough, you can begin to see or create images. Weird images appeared before my mind's eyes, faces of deformed people. I tilted my head and held the images to ponder their lack of existence. I was bored and was not feeling well inside my skin. Why was I here? I wanted to get away from it all. I felt empty inside. I was tired of this daily, worthless experience of existence. And why was I always thinking about things so obsessively? What control did I have over my own thoughts if I cannot make myself stop having them? What control did I have over my own life? Was I in control of my body, my being? People sometimes say that we are in control of our actions, behaviors, and what happens in our lives. To a great extent, this was unlikely. For instance, was SCV in control of his life? Did he commit suicide? Of course not. He was murdered by Avon, In a way, one could say that Avon had control over Isavi's life. Isavi made a lot of his own decisions while he was alive. Avon was also free to act and make his own decisions. Nevertheless, it was Avon's freedom that reigned over Isavi's. If he had supposedly lost his life by acting the way he did, then that meant that he caused his own death. He would therefore have been responsible for the life he led, the decisions he made. Evidently, he was not responsible for Avon's actions. He could not control Avon because Avon was also free to do as he wanted. The only way to have prevented Avon from interfering with Isavi's liberty would have been to take away Avon's liberty. All this led me to one conclusion. The dumb things that people say about being in control of oneself were false. We cannot totally control what happens in our lives, our actions, and to a certain extent, our decisions are not totally ours. Other people have a fair amount of control in our lives. They deprive us of our liberties. They control us because we cannot watch every minute of our lives. Take the example of a person who is walking in the street and suddenly finds himself on the ground, incapable of breathing because a crazy guy decides to shoot him. I do not think this person could be held responsible for being on the ground dying. I mean, how could we reproach him? Can he be blamed for having decided to go out when he did? Maybe if he had waited just 5 minutes longer, he would be alive. Was this person destined to die that day in one way or another? I don't think so. Our destinies depend on others as much as ourselves. Why was I thinking all this? All I really wanted was to run away, to be far, far away. But where was I going? It would not have really mattered. The important thing was to be far, far away from here. To be far away from these quotidian, familial, and adolescent life problems. I did not even want to be on this planet we called Earth. This planet would devour me alive. I did not want to exist. Existence bored me. I woke up each day and I did things, and at night I slept. So repetitive. Sometimes I realized that I existed and that scared me. Not because I really didn't want to exist, but because life is ephemeral, fleeting, and soon I would simply cease to exist. The thought of this frightened me. I know that people say that life is a gift, but I was not convinced of this. I could only feel the pain, the suffering inflicted by others. It was other people who were in control who were making me suffer. It was other people, my parents, friends. Avon was a part of them. I so wanted to go to his jail cell and bang his head against the wall like he did to Isavi. I hope some guy literally screws him in prison. I could not understand why I never revolted. Was I so peaceful? Was I alive because I did not tell him that I too would sing whatever song I wanted? Was I alive because time he came to the house after the separation I greeted him? I said hello to him despite the fact that Isavi did not salute him. In hindsight, I see now that I greeted him simply out of politeness. I should have shown my true repressed feelings, kept inside for years. What does it mean to respect one's parents? Anyway, one is punished for each little thing. He tells you not to do this or that, and then he turns around and breaks all the rules. Children should not be the only ones to follow the rules. All I had to do was be brave. My true lack of freedom was due to the fact that I was afraid to say, give me liberty or give me death. I was afraid of death. And this fear would follow me for years to come. Liberty knew no age. The mere fact of having accepted and done what Avon wanted meant that I was really always free. We didn't sign a contract that obliged me to follow his unjust rules. I was a coward. I was a coward because I did not express what I was feeling. I was a coward because I used to lock my door each night before going to bed just in case he would have thought about entering my room in the middle of the night. Such cowardliness. Why was I so weak? I would have liked to have taken my brother's place. I would have wished that it were me that he had killed. Isavi was brave. I was not. He was brave because he was not afraid to tell Avon that he would never forgive him for all the physical abuse. If he were alive, he would have done great things. I wondered what was going on in Avon's head when he pulled the trigger, I wondered if he thought for even a second that what he was going to do was abominable and immoral. I doubt he seriously considered such things. For crying out loud, he was the same person who told me that life was priceless. After killing SAV, he still wanted to see his baby daughter. But why? If he is incapable of respecting life, then why should he merit the chance to see her? My mind was filled with so many thoughts that if I continued, I would never get any of my homework done. I had a lot of homework and book reports to write for Monday. I opened the shades and the window. I stuck my head out, my elbows on the edge. I did not see anybody but zigzagging escalators, the fire escape. The parking lot was vacant. After a few minutes, a little black girl with long hair came into view. She was running after the ball. She seemed so happy. It's good for her to be happy, I thought to myself. I closed the window. I was not in the mood for doing homework, so I went back to the kitchen. There was nothing to eat. I went to the living room and sat next to my mother, who was watching the news on television. There were images of a young Hispanic man being arrested who had killed somebody. Look at that. He is smiling. He just killed a human being and he is smiling. He's proud. Killer. He is not ashamed at all. That's what's wrong with this country. You kill someone and smile, my mother said with frustration and anger. She sneaked a look at me, but I did not say anything. My grief was great. I was depressed. It was as if I were becoming insane. One evening while at home, alone, I opened the window and watched the rain. It relieved my heartache. Since my childhood, I have always appreciated its tranquility. It was pretty. The wind was knocking the raindrops off balance. They were not falling straight. I remained there, contemplating the rain as I rested my elbows on the window panes. It was falling intermittently. I obeyed its music. This rain, this violent rain, is beautiful, turbulent. My state of mind was changing from calm to agitated. The rain was getting in the room. I wanted to be invaded by the rain. There I would be in the middle of the inundation. I imagined this intensely. I had to join the rain to become a part of it. I closed the window and went to the bathroom to look at myself in the mirror. Was that really me? I did not like what I saw or how I felt. I went back to my room to change clothes. It was now time to become one with the rain. I was walking without an umbrella. The desire to find my brother again grew in me like a physical malady that was eating me inside with all of its force. I walked faster. Now and then I had the desire to scream, to see something break. I was a lion in a cage. The bars prevented me from getting out. The lion wanted to express its rage, but was blocked. My hands were its claws, and I felt the intense feeling in them. Mental suffering was eating me inside like physical pain. What is physical pain if not just mental suffering that eats you inside, tearing your heart apart? The transformation is made when the brain interprets mental pain as physical pain. If the interpretation is not made, there would never be any pain. I was convinced that our neurotransmitters were responsible for this interpretation. The contrary, mental pain to physical pain could also occur. I felt the pang. There was not a difference between physical and mental pain or suffering. I wanted to stop the suffering, but I did not know how. I therefore resigned to its suffocation and continued walking in the rain. My brother was more courageous. He resisted sooner. He escaped, leaving me behind. What was I saying? But he's dead. I stopped for a few seconds to survey my environment. I was literally lost. I kept walking straight ahead, hoping to recognize something. But somehow, my soul knew the way. I was across the street in front of our old house. I walked closer. I saw lights inside the house. It must have been past 8 o'clock in the evening now. Behind the window, I saw two figures, which I imagined to be two brothers, for my convenience. They seemed happy horsing around in the guest living room, where we were rarely permitted to step a foot inside. I could not watch this any longer. I turned away. Only a year ago, this was our house. I turned toward the house again. I need to get inside. I thought about ringing the doorbell, but my hands would not respond. I must be dreaming. I turned away again, knowing that the house was no longer ours. I was desperate. I thought that maybe, just maybe, my brother would be inside. I closed my eyes, wanting to think about something else other than this sadness. I opened them again. The rain was still pelting me. A few meters of walking, I turned to look at the house one last time. It was no longer black. The moment I had turned my head, lightning had struck, shining light upon it. Its true blue color appeared for a brief second. This blue was worse than the darkness of the night. The color brought back memories of yesterday. It inspired dislike in me. At that moment, if I had paint, I would have painted it right there and then, in the rain. I crossed the street. A car was passing at an incredible velocity. Where was the driver going at that speed? Maybe he wanted to hurt himself. It could have been a woman. I struck my forehead with the palm of my right hand. This was supposed to yank me out of my reverie before a car really hit me. I was on Zephyrhills Way. I veered right. This was the only option available to me. This was the same street where I skateboarded so many times, where I played basketball, where I had driving lessons when I was 17 years old. Sometimes I felt like I was saying goodbye to the house, to the neighborhood. I wondered if this would be the last time I would step foot on this exact street. By the time I arrived home, I was tired. I went to bed without taking a shower or brushing my teeth. I turned my head toward the drawing on my dresser. I turned off the light and began thinking about a conversation I had with a high school friend. He supposedly knew how to get a gun for about $60. I was impressed, but a little skeptical. I imagined having the gun, becoming one with the gun. I considered the whole of the imaginary gun. Its circular image stared at my eyes. It was enormous. There, in that hole, was where the bullet would exit. It was a sort of a black hole, a hole in the universe. I wanted to be part of this blackness, darkness, this mystery of which we knew so little. I would enter the hole and boom, I too would be part of the unknown. I would disappear forever. Space, dark space surrounded me. I too would become part of the darkness. I was darkness, darkness. There was nothing that could separate us now. I saw myself swirling around in a black hole in the empty space. I was no longer lost. I was part of something. Shelter. Total shelter. Freedom from people. They can no longer touch me. I can no longer be hurt by words. Abusive words launched at me. But the electrical cord. Yes, I was safe from physical and psychological mistreatments. Oh, hole, infinite hole, protect me. I am protected from everything I no longer want to be hurt. Infinite black hole, protect me from the yesterday. Be my family, for I don't have one. I don't have any friends. I'm already part of your family. I feel it. I want to join you, but I'm afraid of the unknown. I imagined holding tightly onto the imaginary gun. My index finger was caressing the trigger. Then I had a thought. What would happen once the deed was performed? Done. You cannot go back to fix it. That is how things are. The past cannot be rectified. It's set. I imagined the bullet residing in my brain. I need to put it in my brain. That is where it belongs. It wants to be home. It's lonely. It longed for my blue blood to swim in it, even just for a second. I got up to sit on the bed, to have a silent monologue. I'm unworthy to live. I am incapable of living. Oh, black hole, surrender your decision. Final without recourse. I'm tired of the confusion, of the hesitation, of the caprice that is compelling me to think 1 second I want to live and another to perish. I did not know why I should live anymore. Life up to this point had brought me nothing but misery and suffering. I was seriously not sure why I should continue living or even to exist. I was tired of existence. I did not even know why I was born, and this was a serious question. I didn't know why there seemed to be so many unanswered questions about what or who we human beings really are. But the mermaid. I shifted my position in the bed to render the final act real. I'm going to break the ultimate human law. and that of God. Maybe it's immoral. And if it's immoral, then God would never forgive me. What am I saying? God who? I pronounced this last sentence with determination. There was no God. I was making a decision. I had decided that God did not exist. But then other questions came to mind. What should I base my moral decisions on? Morality as practice in society was so relative. I did not believe in the theory of moral relativity, but that was precisely what I saw in society for the most part. If you ask people a question about morality, they would give you different answers. Sometimes you get banal and illogical answers that hurt your ears. Given this, I asked myself what I should rely on. The Bible, universal law, what the heck is that anyway? Or simply my own intuition? Yes, that was it. But aren't my own intuition relative? I was convinced that, to a great extent, if they came from a place of purity, they could not be relative or wrong. Farewell, my friends, family, world. This is a forever goodbye that I am saying to you. I'll miss you, but that's how life is. I rationalize death. It is not a bad thing. If I kill myself, I am only precipitating things. What's the difference? I thought I had a good point here. If someone else kills me, then it is considered a crime. But when death takes me naturally, then why would not one consider that a crime? This was also a very serious question for me. I wanted to understand why such an act is forgiven or overlooked simply because it is natural, quote unquote natural. Are we not energy? I was thinking that perhaps energy was just a source of force, visible or invisible. It should have been at this point that I stopped rambling and questioned my own last question. If I had considered what energy really was, I might have given myself a clue to the nature of immortality. Instead, I continued with that same line of reasoning. I told myself that the problem was that a natural force could be punished because it is invisible. One cannot punish something one cannot see. That was one of the worst and futile nights of my life. Several weeks after moving into the new apartment, my mother made preparations to take my brother's body back to Togo. She asked me if I wanted to go, but I told her that I did not want to miss a whole month of school. However, the true reason was that I was tired of all the sadness. She struggled to find someone with whom I could stay. Gretchen and Steve, friends of the family, were all right with me staying with them on the weekend. During the week, I would stay with my friend Rance and his family. I really did not understand why I could not stay in the apartment alone. I was 17 years old. My mother departed for Togo with Misa